Well, welcome once again to our letter of recommendation workshop today. We're going to go over introductions in just a moment. We'll talk about the purpose of your letters of recommendation. What purpose do they serve as part of your overall application package? Who to ask, when to ask, all of those important details. We'll talk about some pointers, in terms of how to guide your references based on where you are in your professional journey. And we'll leave you with some best practices and templates. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So my name is Elise Rudolph. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for our online MPH program. And we're joined by my incredible colleagues. Stephanie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Some of you I've spoken to, some I'm meeting for the first time. So everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Stephanie Nguyen. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so happy to support you as a part of the admissions team. We are here to help you understand the program and help you throughout the application process. So thank you again.
Awesome. And we are very fortunate to also be joined by one of our current students in the program. So Eamon, thanks so much for being here. Eamon is a second-year student in our health policy and management concentration. He's passionate about improving the healthcare experience through better access, lower costs, and higher quality care. He works as a data consultant at Kaiser Permanente, where he analyzes public policy, economic trends, and business initiatives to forecast insurance membership growth, focusing on Medicaid and federal employee markets across California. For his practicum, Eamon is leading a long-term project at Kaiser on developing a membership growth strategy for military veterans. So thanks so much again for joining us. Would you like to say hello to everyone?
Yeah, thanks, Elise, for introducing me. I think that pretty much covers it. One thing I'll mention is that I live in the Bay Area as well, so I live relatively close to Berkeley, so I can also answer any questions for people who might be visiting campus a little more often when they do choose to come in on how the experience is like.
Awesome. And even you're a double bear as well, right? You did your undergrad at Berkeley also?
That's correct. Yes, I actually did get my bachelor's from UC Berkeley, and it was in public health, so within the School of Public Health. So happy to be here back in this Master's of Public Health program, and you can also answer any questions about what that transition was like too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. Eamon will be sharing his own personal insights into the letters of recommendation process as well. So it'll be great to get his perspective throughout the rest of our presentation also. All right, so understanding the purpose of your letter of recommendation. So this is one component of the application process. Um, we like to share that at UC Berkeley and certainly in our online MPH program, we participate in what we call holistic admission. So your faculty or your application is reviewed by multiple reviewers, multiple faculty reviewers, and we really do take your entire application package into consideration. We're really trying to understand who you are holistically, and your letters of reference are part of that picture that we're getting as to your academic preparation, your professional preparation, all of those things that we're looking for. So this is, this letter should be written by someone who knows you well, either an academic or professional reference. And it should provide insight into what you were like either as a student, as an employee or professional colleague, and as a potential candidate for this program. So it should give the admissions committee a little bit more detail potentially on skills or qualities that that would prepare you for a graduate program. And ideally, it might shed light on things that aren't obvious in other parts of your application as well. So it's really giving us extra context as to who you are and how you're prepared for grad school. So I mentioned this just a moment ago, but who to ask? Your references do need to be from academic or professional sources. Ideally, it's great to have a mix of both, but we understand that not everyone, is necessarily in touch with their former professors, especially if you've been out of school for a while, Or you might be someone who has the opposite situation. You're still in school and you don't have a lot of professional references. So it is okay to give us, three academic or three professional references, but a mix is ideal if you can get that. For academic references, they should focus on your academic potential. So, someone who can speak to your intellectual ability, academic capacity, success that you demonstrated in a class that they taught. If it's someone you were a TA for, they can speak to your work ethic, your, again, academic ability, things like that. If it's a professional reference, they're going to speak to obviously your professional qualities. This is a professional degree program. So, speaking to what you were like as a colleague, what you brought to the company or the organization that you work for, things like that are great. If it's a professional reference, it should be either a current supervisor or colleague. It can be a past employer as well. If it's an academic reference, you'd be looking at asking a professor or, again, someone that maybe you worked for in their lab, things like that. So as I mentioned, you can get all three of your references from either an academic or professional source, but we still are looking for these combination of three letters to address both your academic and professional potential. So if you're doing three academic letters, you might want to coach your reference on how to give, some sense of your professional capacity. And the opposite, if you're asking three professional references, you might want to coach one of those references to speak about your academic ability as well. And we can get into more of that later on. So I want to ask Eamon, who did you ask to be your references, and how did you approach reaching out to your recommenders?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that question. So, I think a lot of individuals who are currently in the UMF program are currently working either at a full-time or part-time or contract capacity. So, I think the first thing that we think of is probably the professional reference when it comes to the relationship that we have with our current manager. So, the first thing that I did was when I was interested in applying to the program was first kind of talk to my manager and express interest in the fact that I wanted to apply and that this would be a commitment that I'm pursuing, to have that candid conversation and inform him. And then once that happened, I asked basically, if I do apply for the program, would you be willing to write a letter of recommendation for me to get into the program as well? And so, within that same conversation, which was the first one, I was able to kind of get his support and confirmation that I would be able to, get a letter of recommendation from him. So that was the first one. The second one, I also kind of thought along my professional pathway because I have a little bit more uh, contacts and experience in that realm. And so another one of my letters of recommendation was uh, in this nonprofit organization I used to work at during my college days. In my undergraduate days, I had a good working relationship with kind of one of the main board members of the nonprofit organization because I worked very closely with him on some of the projects. The project was basically creating hand pumps in third world countries, specifically in the South Asian areas, as well as schools. And so our specific focus was the hand pump project. And so my working relationship with him over a couple years was pretty strong, but I hadn't contacted him in maybe like 3 or 4 years. It had been a long time since I last contacted him. So that one was, I knew I could get a good word from him, but it was just kind of a long time since I had reached out to that individual. So it was like a little uh, less comfortable for me to be able to do that. So I sent an email to him at first. And then I didn't get a response from his email, so I assumed that he was busy. So then, luckily, I had his text message number, so I was able to text him and be like, basically with the similar information in a more condensed manner, and then got his kind of approval just via text, and then was able to continue that conversation via email. So those are two of my professional letters of recommendation, and then the last one was the academic one. So for the academic one, I feel like for a lot of us who have not been in undergrad for too long, this can be the most challenging. What I recommend is think back to professors that you had, a good experience with in their class, even if you didn't necessarily, have go to their office hours or develop like a working relationship with them. Just any professor you had a good experience with, think back on them and just cold email them and be like, hey, I was a previous student in your class. I really enjoyed your class. And now I'm willing to take the next step for my education. Are you willing to write a letter of recommendation? So I did that with a couple professors and, didn't really get any responses. Again, I'm assuming they're busy because it was a school year. But since I live close to Berkeley, and that was my undergrad, I kind of went to campus, often just after I graduated just to experience it. And one time there was an event that happened on campus, and there was, a lot of, it was a public health event from the School of Public Health. I attended it, and then I ran into one of my old professors, who, taught me in my class, and I reached out to him, and just caught up with him. And after the conversation, basically, I mentioned that I'm expressing interest in applying for the School of Public Health. And then he offered to me, he's like, oh, if you're applying, I can write you a letter of recommendation. So then I was like, wow, that just happened to work out that way after all these cold emails. And so shows you that sometimes it just takes a face-to-face interaction as well, if it's possible for you to make that happen. And those are kind of the three letters of recommendation I secured and how I secured each of them.
That's great advice. And a perfect segue actually to our next slide, which is how to ask for references. And Eamon already gave a number of great suggestions, including reaching out to multiple people, putting in some FaceTime where necessary, things like that. So these are some additional tips, kind of building off the idea of a face-to-face ask. If you're seeking a academic reference, it can be great to pop into office hours. Again, sending emails, trying to schedule a brief video or phone appointment with them might help. And then for your professional contacts, ask at work. Again, similarly, it might be important to put in a little bit of FaceTime, especially if it's a former employer, someone you haven't been in touch with in a while. You can send that cold email, but maybe try to set up a time to connect over the phone or over Zoom, so that you can give them a little more context. So we recommend that you begin this outreach process as soon as possible. As Eamon also mentioned, sometimes you need to cast a wide net and ask more folks than, if you're hoping to get 3 letters, you might need to ask 5 people, because folks might be busy or just not have the capacity to take that on. So start early. If you're planning to apply for our fall cycle, now is a great time to begin reaching out to potential references. And it also gives them more time to write the reference. And I can certainly say that anyone writing a reference is going to appreciate having more time to do it. And then give them as many materials as possible to help guide their writing process. So provide them your resume. You might want to send them, a few like a little blurb about some accomplishments. If it's your employer, you can, send them a little bulleted list of some things you've accomplished in your role. Similarly, it might be some successes you had in their class, if it's a professor, things like that. So give them details about the online MPH program, why you want to pursue it. So giving them those tools will also make the writing process easier, and can also help them write a more compelling letter on your behalf. Keep in mind our application deadlines. We'll leave you with some pointers as well, but make sure you communicate those very clearly to your references. They will get an automated email from our system that includes those deadlines, but it can be very helpful to hear it from you as well, and to give them reminders as necessary. The way that this process works is your references will submit those letters on your behalf electronically. So another thing to keep in mind is they'll be submitting them directly through our system to your application file. They won't go back through you. So also something to keep in mind, when you're checking up with them is just making sure they're aware of the process and what to expect. All right, so where you are in your professional journey may impact what is highlighted in your letter. And so these are really just, I won't spend too much time on this because we'll send out these slides, but these are really some great points on, that you can share with your reference on things to highlight depending on what stage of your career you're in. So if you're an early career professional, someone who's kind of just starting out in that, 1 to 3 year professional range, they might want to highlight, again, academic potential, skill development, your leadership promise, things like that. If you're someone who's making a career pivot, so maybe your career hasn't been in public health historically, they definitely want to highlight any transferable skills. And you might need to be the one to kind of identify those transferable skills for your reference. So keep that in mind. You might need to do the legwork to think through what are those transferable skills? How has the current career that you've built prepared you for a career in public health? Think through those things and give your reference some of those notes so they can write a letter that describes how you're well positioned to pivot into public health. If you're someone who's been in public health for a while and you're just looking to upskill or maybe get a promotion or move forward, you might want to guide your references to talk about your depth of experience. Again, it could be your demonstrated leadership, any specific skills, advanced skills that you have, or your professional growth within that company. And then if you're returning to school, someone who's maybe later in their career and you're going back to school, again, similarly, they're going to want to reflect on all that you've accomplished in your career, any mentorship or leadership that you've demonstrated. And I think an important thing as well is your commitment to lifelong learning. All of our faculty describe themselves as teacher learners. It's something that's very important, I think, culturally in our program. And so, your references will want to speak to how, as a seasoned professional, you've continued to incorporate learning and growth into your career. All right, and I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
Thank you. So on the note of what to include, we wanted to add a couple more pointers on what to emphasize. So a few things that we had spoken about, but this is a little bit more condensed, is you can take many approaches to your letters of recommendation. For example, a few key pointers that can really feel like your references know you well is adding context to these details here. Relationship and context. How long have y'all known each other? What is the nature of your work collaboratively? Fit and distinction. It's really helpful not only from your essays, but also from someone who is observant of your skill sets, your growth, your interests, right? Why are you a strong fit for the program? What makes you stand out? Is there any particular achievements that you have had that really stands out to them that they'd want to recognize? Academic and intellectual potential. We can certainly benefit from learning more about your intellectual ability, your curiosity, and motivation to learn as teacher learners. There are going to be things that you are exceptionally skilled at, but we would also love to see what are you interested in learning more about, and your ability for analytical thinking, research, and so forth, especially in an academic setting. Professional qualities and skills, communication, problem solving, and so forth. And of course, resilience and motivation. So challenges that you've had to overcome to achieve your academic or professional goals. So there's a few approaches that I think can be helpful to include in your letters of recommendation that really help with the holistic process of the application. But I would like to turn the question to Eamon, who has gone through this whole process here. Did you give your references any guidance on what to emphasize and include in their letter of recommendation?
Yeah, that's a good question, Stephanie. So, as I mentioned when I was talking about how I went about getting my letters of recommendation, all three of those scenarios kind of had different communications. So, the first scenario where I had a conversation with my boss, my manager, and I was expressing interest in the Master's of Public Health program, I was able to just give him a little bit of context there about like why I was applying and why I feel ready within that face-to-face interaction between me and him. So he had a lot more context into kind of what to write about. And, because he knew me for a long amount of time, I think it was relatively straightforward for him to write a letter of recommendation. For the second letter of recommendation I mentioned, which was the old board member from one of the nonprofits I used to work at in college, that communication was primarily over text in the beginning. And I never even had a phone call with him or anything. I just had it on text, and then I emailed him afterwards. And within the email that I had sent to him, which was basically me formalizing the fact that, thank you for having that text conversation with me. Can you please write a letter of recommendation? Within that same email of me requesting him to write a letter of recommendation, I gave him some reminders, you can say, about some of the things I had done in the organization that made me kind of fit and prepared me to apply for the master's. And so with those kind of bulleted points of things, I'm sure he was able to reference it. Even if he didn't fully remember it from his end, he was able to at least, apply that experience onto me and fit it into his letter of recommendation, however he did so. And then the final avenue, which was that interaction with my professor who told me in person that he was offering to write a letter of recommendation for me. After I had that conversation, I had gotten his email, which I had found on the UC Berkeley website, and was able to email him, thanking him for having that conversation with me and offering that, ability to write the letter of recommendation. And within that same email, similar to how I responded to the board member for the nonprofit organization, I had sent my professor a list of things that I had appreciated about the class and how that kind of helped me prepare for the Master's of Public Health via email, again, in a bulleted list, not in any paragraph or anything like that. So with those emails that I had sent to those two letter of recommendation writers, I think that helped them uh, put some more kind of context into who I am as a person and how my individual experiences within and with those two individuals kind of shape my ability to be prepared for being here. So,
Thank you so
yeah.
much. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Moving on to best practices for recommenders. So now you have the tools on what you need to do to reach out to your recommenders or references. We use the terms interchangeably throughout the session here. So a few things that we would love for references to do is include the candidate's full name. We want to ensure that these are personalized letters of recommendation. So it's preferable that it's stated in the first paragraph. We also want to make sure that it's typewritten or word process. It should not be written letters. We want to make sure that it can properly scan and be legible for review. And it should also be printed on a professional letterhead. So in some cases, a reference might move on to another organization or so and may not have access to that. You can always check in if there's any concerns with us, and we can let you know, any alternative suggestions should they have any difficulty with their letters of recommendation. But another important factor is requiring the writer's signature, preferably in black or blue ink. For proper scanning or electronic signature. We want to ensure that this is an accurate letter of letter recommendation and an honest one. Letters should also conclude with legible identifying personal information. So full name, title, institution, mailing address, telephone number, and email address. So just common identifying personal information in the event that we need to follow up with the reference. Make sure that they do not focus solely on personal traits without connecting it back to an academic or professional ability. While it's helpful to note that we can say Eamon is a really nice person to work with, but in what context does that bring to the letter of recommendation without relevancy to the academic potential or professional skills that they have, that he has produced over time. So always connect it back to a reason that is relevant to why they're writing the letter of recommendation and to the program. Do not use overly broad descriptors. So try to have them be as detailed as possible when it comes to explaining their observations and why you might be a good fit. Why are they endorsing you essentially? And in accordance with federal laws and university policy, authors of letters of recommendation are asked to refrain from comments regarding candidates' race, color, gender, religion, age, physical or mental disability, marital status, sexual orientation, national origin, citizenship, medical condition, or political affiliations, beliefs, or activities. We want this to be a letter that focuses on the specific details of your candidacy for program and will not factor these other areas for candidacy into the program. Moving on, the template. So we have here on the right what a typical letter of recommendation may look like. As you can see here, usually it's just a few paragraphs and does not have to be more than a page. Key components typically include when the letter is written, name as I mentioned, title, and so forth. And the body will include very detailed points about the applicant, emphasizing their academic and potential information that they want to share. And with that, if they choose to go a little bit over, that's okay. But minimum page is 1 usually. And I'll pass this back for Elise to share the overarching message.
Yeah, so essentially, we understand that the process of securing letters of recommendation can be a little stressful for both you and for your references. You're having to do some cold outreach often, and they're also under pressure to write something compelling and they usually, if you've asked someone who knows you well and is a fan of you, they want you to get into the program, so they want to do a good job. And really, one of the takeaways that we have for you is make it as easy on them as possible. So yeah, as both Stephanie and Eamon have shared, give them as much information about you, about your accomplishments, about the program. All of that is going to help them. Giving them early deadlines to make sure they submit on time. Of course, tied in with that is making sure you ask early. The sooner the better. And then, you want to make sure they have time to write something thoughtful. And then once you submit your reference contact information in the application, which so just to be clear, the way this process will work is when you've started your UC Berkeley online application, there will be a space for you to enter their contact information, email, and they will receive a letter or an email directly from UC Berkeley asking them to submit the letter on your behalf. So you will be notified once they've submitted their letter of recommendation. If you haven't received that notification, they haven't yet submitted their letter, sometimes it's helpful to follow up with them. Great. And so we just want to cover a couple frequently asked questions when it comes to letters of reference. So can I submit my application before my references submit their letters? So the answer is yes, you can submit your application before references submit their letters. We actually encourage this a lot of the time. So if you're finding that you're done with all of the parts of the application that you have control over, your essays, your resume, all of that has been submitted, go ahead and submit your application. There's no reason to wait for your references to submit because they can still do that once you're done. So don't let their process delay your process. Can my references submit their letters before I submit my application? Absolutely. So the inverse is also true. You do need to create your application in order for them to be notified and get that email from UC Berkeley asking them to submit their letter. So you need to do that first. But if you're still working on it, they can always submit their letter in the meantime. If you're applying for fall, we do have a priority deadline of January 5th and a final deadline of March 2nd. We highly, highly, highly encourage that your references submit their letters as soon as possible by that deadline or earlier. If your references don't make that deadline, we give applicants a 2-week grace period after the submission deadline to get in any missing materials. So if you're missing a transcript, if you're waiting on a letter of recommendation, you have 2 weeks after that date to get your letters in. So there is a little bit of a grace period, but I would really emphasize those final deadlines, January 5th and March 2nd to your references. And I wanted to ask Eamon, now that we've kind of talked about some final FAQ and our key takeaways, Eamon, now that you are in the program, what do you think makes a letter of recommendation stand out for someone applying to the program?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the things that's really important about, or one of the things that, that's important about somebody who's in the program is being able to kind of balance multiple things. Because when you're in the program, not only are you in a master's program, but you're likely also working full time or at least part time. So having your potential letter of recommender kind of mention ways that you're able to work on multiple things or have taken a new initiative or learn something new. Those are all, I think, things that would be helpful. So finding people that know you are able to do those things or are capable of those things, I think would be helpful. And especially because when you're in the program, you also are engaged in something called a practicum, which is yet another thing that you are kind of balancing amongst the various things you're currently doing. So I would say that finding a candidate that is balanced and able to take on new initiatives, willing to learn, and is passionate about public health. Those are kind of the 4 things that I would ultimately want to see in a letter of recommendation. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think those are great takeaways.
One thing before we move on to the next slide is there's a memo in the letter of recommendation section, and I think it's to your advantage to utilize that if you have any specific things that you want to tell your references. So make sure that when you get to that section, if there's any notes where, let's say that you're aiming for the January 5th deadline, you might want to put that in the memo and say, hey, I'm applying to the priority deadline. You may see a fall deadline that says March 2nd, but I'm actually aiming for the priority. So please submit your letter of recommendation in by that time. So use that to your advantage. And as we close out, you can always reach out to us via email at online.mph@berkeley.edu if you have any questions. We're here to support you and happy to take on any questions regarding the application or program. Happy to connect with you one-on-one as well. So if you would prefer to meet via Zoom or phone, feel free to schedule an appointment with me. Eamon is our incredible student ambassador as well. So if you have any questions that you would like to connect with a current student, he is definitely an incredible point of contact as well. So I'm plugging you in there. And our upcoming events, as Eamon mentioned, we do have a practicum and we have a career services team that is very excited to share what they do and a few things that you can expect within our program. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what the RISE office does, what that looks like for your time in the program, and also as you move on to become an alum in the program, I think this is a fantastic session to check out. It will be held Wednesday, November 19th at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And also give us a follow. We love to highlight any upcoming events, new things that are happening on campus through the School of Public Health. So stay in touch with us through Instagram and LinkedIn, learn a lot more about our students. And with that said, I will go ahead and pause this recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll be happy to take questions right now.